We've given them screens, sports, social platforms, but we haven't given them the structure. Welcome to Legends in the Making, the podcast for parents, coaches, and culture shapers who aren't raising followers, they're raising leaders. I'm your host, Erin Sarles Bowers, and today's truth might rattle you. Freedom without discipline isn't freedom at all. It's a slow collapse. And the letter today reads, Dear Legends in the Making, I'm raising two teenagers in a world that keeps preaching freedom. Everyone tells them to express themselves, follow their truth, do what feels right. But I'm watching my kids drown in options and lack all direction. We've given them screens, sports, social platforms, but we haven't given them structure. I feel like I'm fighting culture with one hand tied behind my back. When I try to implement discipline, they push back. When I talk about standards, they roll their eyes. I want them to live free, but not this kind of freedom. This freedom looks like a lot of confusion and rebellion. What do I do when the world is telling them, you do you, but I'm trying to teach them accountability, character, and legacy? Sincerely, a father who still believes in discipline. Wow, what a hard-hitting message. And just, I'm trying to absorb all that was just that shared, but it's so true. We're creating a culture where we really confuse freedom with the absence of structure. And that's not freedom at all. Real freedom is the ability to operate within boundaries, with clarity, with conviction. That's what freedom is. Freedom is knowing who you're supposed to be and being the most authentic, true version of yourself, not just run past or run across the top all the rules. It's about being a leader of what the standards are supposed to be. That's true freedom. True freedom is putting our stake in the ground and understanding that in order to be free, we have to live in our truth. We have to know who we are. We have to be who we are if we want to be truly free. Freedom isn't just doing whatever you want, because that lacks character, integrity, and discipline. Doing whatever you want has huge ramifications and huge costs. And yes, do we want our children to understand the freedom? Do we want our children to understand what it means to learn and who they're supposed to be? But how do we provide them the guardrails, the conversations, the structure in order to be their highest potential, to be exceptional? Exceptional human beings have exceptional standards for themselves, and they live by those standards day in and day out. That's freedom. That's knowing who you are. And we live in a culture where, especially in America, where we idolize individualism, but without being aligned with who you are, in alignment with the truth of who you are. And in that, we're creating rebellion, but we're also creating dissidence. We're creating negativity in our environment because we're not living from our truth. And the truth is that at the end of the day, you are your soul. You are the energetic blueprint that God created you to be and to have your unique expression put out into the world. That's freedom. Being 100% authentically you and acting from a state of love and kindness, not authentically you and who gives a shit and I'm going to act however I want to act, be whoever I want to be, and who gives a shit who this impacts. No, real authenticity is being in your truth and doing it through love. So we have a lot of work as parents, as leaders, to really figure out when it comes to how do we start to put our culture and these children's lives on the right track. How do we do that? We've created like this concept of let them figure it out, or they already know. It's like, yeah, I have a 14 and 17-year-old. They know as much as a 15 and 17-year-old know. I'm not discounting how wise and how insightful they are, but they've only been on this earth for 15 and 17 years. They have a lot more life lessons to go through as their souls continue to age and become wiser. But just this concept of let them figure it out. Really? They're only 14. They need guidance. Asking them, what do you think? Let's engage in a dialogue. But that doesn't mean you just go, let them do what they're going to do, or, whatever the consequences are, they're here to figure it out. That's not how we should be leading. Kids need space. Well, true, we all need our space, but without standards, you're setting up a spiral. What are your expectations in that space? Yes, do we all need that opportunity to have time to ourselves, to have alone time? Yes. But what are the standards around that? You get a couple hours, you get, we're going to come back and have family dinner time. Hey, what'd you think about? What were you spending your time on? Let's talk about that. They'll learn through their mistakes. Yeah, they will learn through their mistakes, but only if you're there to teach them and guide them and ask them the questions. What did you learn? What would you do differently? How are you going to show up differently in that situation? That's the freedom you're creating, is the insightfulness to explore and find the answer for themselves. That's what we need to create for our children, is the opportunity to not just give them the answer or to tell them what to do. That seems rather easy, like just do what I say. But ultimately, you have to create a space for them to learn and figure it out so that they can imprint and learn through that situation versus like, well, my mom just told me what to do and I'm not supposed to do that. Well, why are you not supposed to do that? Why? And if you did do it, what did you learn from it? We are here to create the space and the guardrails for their learning. That's why we became their parents. That's why we take on roles as leaders and coaches and teachers, is not to tell them what to do, but to be a guide and to be an explorer. The one thing that I think we miss so often is being curious and suspending judgment. I think as a parent, I see it all the time. It's like, you're mad at me. It's like, no, I actually have no opinion. I love you. So I'm not mad or upset. What did you learn from that situation? What would you do differently? What will you do differently next time? How can I support you? Versus like, don't do that again. I'm so pissed at you, which, I can say I've had those moments as parents, but the reality is I didn't really learn a lot other than I made somebody upset. And that's not what it's about. It's about, did they learn the lesson that they needed to learn to grow their souls? That's the reality. When I think about what's the truth here is God doesn't grant freedom so we can do whatever we want. He gives us freedom so we can submit to purpose and align with truth. Let me say that again. God doesn't grant us freedom so we can do whatever we want. He gives us freedom so we can submit to purpose and align with truth. Like, breathe that in. We are to submit to who we are, who God created us to be. Do we remember who God created us to be? Do you know? Do your children know who you are? And understanding that each one of us came with a divine purpose, unique to us, not any better, not any more special than anybody else, but uniquely our mission, our purpose. And to then align with that and express that in the world. And to understand that we have two very basic rules to follow: to love God and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. We are here to just be love. And what I am doing, is it loving? And I think I try to impart this on my kids all the time, is like, it's so hard because we are in this 3D world, and it's so hard to get caught up in all of that. But it's like, that is not the truth of who we are. All of that is a reflection of us. But the truth of who we are is that we are our souls. We have a divine purpose, and we are here to express that. And we see this laid out for us time and time and time again. I think there's the one Bible story that I will share, when you have Moses leading the people to freedom. They want freedom from discipline, not freedom through it. And that's what you don't understand, is like, you being free means you also are here to follow God's laws and rules. So oftentimes we want to break out of it, but it's like the only way that you get freedom is through discipline, is through living with high character, by doing the things that are your character when nobody's watching, which is your integrity, and then doing it again and again and again, and creating structure for yourself so that you're highly disciplined. Discipline for me is almost like a prayer to God. It's an honoring of God through who we are. I remember working in corporate America, and I can't remember who said this, but it was like, godliness is next to cleanliness. But in the sense of like, cleanliness is a reflection of the internal values that you see within yourself. Like, really think about that. If your house is a mess, what do you feel internally? And I'm not passing judgment, but everything is a reflection. It's like, is everything in order? I am so disciplined and in reverence of the holiness of who I am, because I know I'm an emanation of God itself, that everything in my life reflects that. And that only comes through discipline. Not just speaking it, it's the way you practice it. It's your actions. It's your state of being. So things that I would offer, when I think about working with families in Blueprinted Blue Chip, how do we really start to give them freedom through discipline? Do we really start to engage them in the why, not just the what? Don't just set rules, build rituals, and have them understand how these rituals or rules, or however you want to term it, standards, reflect your reverence of who you are. It's an honoring of yourself. So how do you build that where it's like that's a reflection of you? And for my CEOs, my business leaders that are out there, your team doesn't burn out from too much discipline. They're exhausted by unclear expectations. They're exhausted by confusion and lack of direction and lack of standards or lack of implied standards. I see that a lot too. It's like, well, you should know. It's like, did we ever talk about this? You know, people rise up to the expectation. What are you expecting? What is your standard? How do you have more discipline? We've really created this like, oh, well, this person was late. We can't talk about them because if we lose them, then we really won't have anybody. No, you need to be on time. Timeliness reflects godliness. It's accountability. It reflects you. Not having conversations because we're afraid of somebody is not helping society. We're all doing it. We're all sitting on our hands. We're all staying quiet because we're fearful of people's reactions. We have to move beyond that. It's killing us. So again, we don't want to lead from fear. We want to lead from conviction. We want to lead from the highest truth of who we are, which is we are exceptional. We were made in God's image. We are amazing. So are we acting amazing all of the time? Do we remember that? Do we embody that? Do we live that? You know, we're not raising free agents. We're raising future leaders who need formation more than freedom. We are setting the stage for the next generation in every action, in every inaction, in everything that we do. That's the calling. That's the calling of my soul, is to raise exceptional leaders that will make this world exceptional. That is our legacy. That is our legacy as parents. That is our legacy as leaders. And are we holding people to the standard of exceptionalism? So freedom without discipline always feels good until it costs you everything. So parents, if you'd like to work with me for 5 days on raising exceptional kids, all I ask is you make a $100 donation to a nonprofit of my choice, but it is absolutely free other than making a donation. 5 days, one-on-one with me to work with you and your student athlete, or you, 2 student athletes, whatever that might be. And leaders, if you want to realign and get clarity and step into the best version of you so that you create other exceptional leaders within your organization, I also have a 5-day reset called Clarity. So DM me, step into this, let's go. If you want to make the change, this is your opportunity. Both opportunities are a $100 donation, and you get to work with me for 5 days, and it is focused on you. And if you want to write me a letter, please drop it in the comments. I'll send you my email, and I'd love to have your letter read on my next show. And until then, keep being legendary.